Hello and welcome to the MBR Show. I'm Danny Milner.
And I'm Al Muldoon.
And today we're going to take a dive into the numbers on the new Bosch Performance CX motor.
So Danny, this motor first broke cover at Eurobike and it was hiding in plain sight. But now you've been to the official launch of the motor. Can you hit me with the headline numbers? Because it's got to have more power, right?
That's what you'd think, but no, it's exactly the same.
What?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Okay, show's over, everybody can go home. Nothing here to talk about.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have to put up their game, right? You've got DJI with the Avinox motor just coming out. Everyone's talking about the numbers there.
So Danny, about those numbers, actually, I don't know how you could miss the DJI bike. It's everywhere. So the numbers on that bike, it's got 105 Newton meters of torque, and then it goes to, like in boost mode, it goes to what, like 120 with 1,000 watts of peak power?
Mm-hmm. So Bosch, you've got 85 Newton meters and 600 watts.
So that's mid power, right?
Yeah, but do you remember when the Generation 4 Bosch CX motor came out with 75 Newton meters,
That's
didn't
right,
it?
yeah,
and
yeah.
then a year later, they boosted that up to 85.
So do you think they're going to do the same thing now? And do you think they're going to wait a year?
Well, I'm not saying what they're going to do, I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did the same thing. I mean, history repeats itself.
Yeah, it does.
In these
I don't think they can wait a year.
I wouldn't have thought so.
So Danny, if there's no extra power, like why should people keep watching?
That's a good point. Well, actually, there's lots of interesting stuff that you only sort of find out when you ride it and you dig into the details. So we can
Hit me with it.
Okay, all right, let's go. Well, first of all, the physical size, yeah. So it's smaller and it's lighter. It shares the same mounting points as the Bosch SX system. Yeah. And that's important because it helps brands to package their frames, improve their suspension. They can put the pivots where they want.
A bit like on the Santa Cruz Valor, basically.
That's right. Dropper post insertion, it helps with that. All these little things.
Okay, so Danny, one of the things that really annoys me about the current SX motor is that it rattles. Please tell me, does the new motor rattle?
No more rattle.
Oh, thank
no
God
more
for
rattle
that.
when you're coasting. Okay. It's totally silent. And not only that, it's the noise, it's quieter when the motor is in operation as well.
So it's kind of less motor whine,
less
as
whine,
you call it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, the bike I was riding last week, which I can't tell you what it is yet, but totally silent, like really, really impressive.
Okay.
And then got back to the UK, I rode a bike with the SX motor on and it's like, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, when we've had that, we talked about when Shimano did like EP801 and it was rattling, and I can remember riding a Specialized bike, I think. I was riding a quiet bike anyway, and I could hear the person riding in front of me, the rattle of their motor was annoying me because you just don't want to ride.
It's distracting, yeah. And I think, it really brings it into focus when you ride something silent and then you go back. It's really hard to go back.
Yeah, totally.
Massive step forward there.
Okay, so it's quiet. Tell me it's got more range.
Yeah, it will have more range because there's two new batteries, 600 watt hour and 800 watt hour.
Okay.
And they use the latest cell technology, high density cells. So the really important thing is that the 800 watt hour battery is lighter by 400 grams than the 750 that's currently out there. The 600 is like 900 grams lighter than the 800. So you can get some significant weight savings on the bike if you choose to go for that system.
And they'll all still be compatible with the 250 watt hour power more range extender.
Exactly,
right?
and I think that's a really smart move. It makes perfect sense for people. I know when I go riding, if I'm using a 600 or a 700 watt hour battery, I pretty rarely use that full battery.
That's because Danny doesn't ride in turbo.
So secret's out.
I'll rinse it.
But there are a lot of rides. Say you're doing 2 hours or something, you come back with whatever 30, 40, 20% battery. So you can have a really way more agile bike potentially, and then just use that range extender when you need it for the longer rides.
And you were telling me something interesting off camera was that the batteries,
physical
size of the batteries, there's some similarity, and some brands can put either battery in. If you go with a big battery, you can also put the small battery into the frame.
So the old system had the 625 and the 750, and the 750 was longer than the 625, so it wouldn't fit all bikes. It wouldn't fit small frames and stuff, for instance.
That's really important.
The new batteries are the same length, but the 800 is a little bit fatter.
Okay, so if you had a bike that had an 800, you could put a 600 in it because basically it would fit within the space within the downshift, but you couldn't do the opposite.
Yeah, and you are seeing some brands. We've seen the Santa Cruz, with the Orbea Wild as well, where they've decided to slim down the down tube, make the bike look a little bit more like an analog bike, and you won't be able to fit the 800 in there, but they've made that conscious decision.
But it might give those bikes too that feel that you get with the SL bike, because when you oversize the down tube, you bring a lot of stiffness into a bike. You've got to try and like get rid of it elsewhere. And whereas if the
really good
proportions are more kind of like more symmetrical with the rest of the frame, then you can get a nice feel to the ride quality.
Absolutely, it's giving brands more options when they're designing their e-bikes. I think that's great.
Okay, yeah, it's amazing. So Danny, that's really cool. Now I've got a white E-Lite 150 on test, and it's really noticeable. It's got an inset into the top tube, and then it's got the old LED display like kind of sitting into it. Have they brought out the new display yet that fits in that space so I can ditch the one that's on there?
Nope. Okay. Still got to wait for that.
Okay.
In fact, they were...
It's drip feeding from Bosch, isn't it? It's like...
They were typically very tight-lipped about it. They wouldn't reveal anything about it, even though it's like super obvious it's coming. This is the Bosch way, right?
Okay.
So I would expect it to come out next year sometime. I would expect it to be some kind of touchscreen kiosk design. You know, I think it will be a nice step forward. But again, when you've got things like the DJI, which has got a really incredible OLED display, like touchscreen 2-inch display thing on the top tube, you know, that train has departed.
So what have they done instead? Because that display, I mean, all it really tells is your power mode, and it gives you like little LED lights for your battery capacity and 10% chunks.
The brand new addition to the range is a design that we've seen for pretty much the last 8 years from Shimano.
Oh, no way.
A nice little kind of display behind the handlebar, yeah. And we joke.
But to be fair, like the Shimano screen stood the test of time.
It has. This is like that. You get all of the data you need. You can scroll through really easily. It's protected. It's small. So it's the Purion 400.
Love the names.
It really trips off the tongue. And I think you'll see it on a lot of bikes.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, they've had some, let's face it, they've had some displays. Right? Like all that stuff that goes around the stem, the one that's at your hand here when you turn your bike up so that it doesn't get scratched. They really didn't get it, did they?
You say that, but one of the new bikes that came out with the Bosch CX motor, that's all they've got on them, and they made a conscious decision to run with those old controllers on the handlebars because that's what their market wants.
What market are they living in?
The ones that climb up fire roads and descend down fire roads.
Oh, interesting.
They like the navigation features.
Oh, wow. You mean like MTB touring? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is. So I don't know. It's not
for me.
It's not our market,
not
but
for me.
Apparently people want them.
Okay, that's interesting. So you got a new display. I mean, they call it a smart system, right? Mm-hmm. Have they made it smarter?
I think so, 100%. I guess the big changes, apart from the rattle, really, is internally they've added these inertia sensors. Mm-hmm. So they're feeding in data to the brain about acceleration, gradient, the trail surface you're on.
So the bike now knows whether you're going uphill, along the flat, or downhill, basically.
It does, but also like it's feeding information about bumps and stuff.
Okay.
So it knows if the bike's
whether you're on a smooth surface or that's really cool.
And also obviously if you're accelerating, decelerating, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's pretty sophisticated. I mean, it's not that other people don't have those things in their motors, but it's the first time Bosch has added them, and all of that. I think kind of with Bosch's experience over the years in developing the software for their motors and then having these extra data sources feeding in has just taken the response to like a next level.
But you came back from that launch and you were like, I mean, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's got no more power, it's got no more torque, but you were pretty impressed with its climbing capabilities, and it's got to be those smart features that allow you to do that.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I'm genuinely blown away by some of the stuff that I was climbing with this system, whether that's kind of really chunky, rocky kind of steps, or basically a rocky downhill track and you're just riding back up it, or whether you're doing like a really tight switchback climb where you're almost sort of having to trials around the corners.
Would you say that it helped you meter the power more accurately to the situation?
I would, and the power, exactly the right amount of power is delivered at precisely the moment you need it.
So you don't get that kind of jerky, jolty kind of feel, because that's one of the things that like I kind of liked about maybe it's a double-edged sword with the old CX would be that everybody liked the vroom feel to it, but that vroom feel could feel like a little bit clunky when you were trying to do something that required like a lighter touch.
Yeah, so you can still get that, and if you go into the turbo mode, you can still have that. If you run it in EMTB, that's when all of the systems really start talking to each other and communicating. And for instance, one of the latest features that is quite cool, quite useful, is the extended boost, I think they call it. So it's like your overrun, basically. And instead of having to go into your app, like some brands make you do to tune it, you can actually just use your feet So
it's like intelligent overrun, would you call it that?
I would say on the fly tunable.
Okay.
I mean, so if you do a little kind of stab of the cranks like that, a little ratchet of the cranks, it will give you, I don't know, 30 centimeters, a small amount of overrun. And then if you give it like a quarter turn, it will give you the full 2 meters, and then you can just keep doing those like quarter.
You told me you half cranked up a climb doing that for a section.
I did up like a actually quite steep, quite technical climb, and just going rup, rup, rup. And so if you've got limited pedal clearance,
that's what really comes into play, right? Whereas if you're in a gully or something like that, and you really don't want to risk doing a full cycle of the pedals because you might clip one of them.
Yeah. It's genuinely astonishing what it will get you up, and that's with a lot less power and torque on paper than the DJI.
So would you say, do you think, are all of these features, like the intelligent features, that kind of lead me to think, well, you'd need all of those if you wanted like automatic shifting?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did a video on this actually with Jamie. I rode the Bosch system with the TRP.
Yeah.
And I actually really was impressed with the E-Shift system with the TRP.
Okay.
I thought it was really smart. It was delivering the shifts exactly where I wanted. It wasn't getting me into situations where I was like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong gear here. The actual quality of the shifting is not up there with SRAM and Shimano from TRP, but the
integration and the intelligence side of it.
Yeah, the automation was really, really good, really impressive.
Interesting. So that's a real window into what's coming in the future, right?
I think so. And we were debating in that video with Jamie whether people actually want it. I don't know. People seem pretty reticent about things like flight attendants and live valve before that, and then the auto shift that's already out there. Like no one seems to be really sort of jumping on it.
Yeah, people just care about the numbers now. More power, more torque. That's what
everybody
wants, right?
Maybe maybe no one will have any of this stuff, or maybe some people will. I don't know, but it's definitely moving in the right direction in terms of the performance. What I loved about it was that I could let the gears do their thing, and I could just sort of hold onto the bike. And if it's like technical or it's rough or you just feel planted on the bike.
Yeah, focus on the riding.
Yeah.
So Danny, that all sounds like actually way more impressive than I thought it was going to be. So what brands are running this motor? What can you get right now if you wanted to make the jump?
Well, obviously we've talked about the Santa Cruz Valor. Then you've got the new Trek Rail, quite a significant bike. The Cube Stereo Hybrid, there's various travels in that. Mondraker Chaser. The Orbea Wild, that's another significant
great bike.
Focus Jam Squared, the Moustache Game, the Crestline S180 and LS160, the Ghost E Riot. High bike have got the All Mountain and All Trail, and then there's a Norco Sight VLT, which is due, I think, sometime next year.
Okay, well, so loads of bikes, right?
Loads of
choice.
That's just at this moment. I'm sure there's more coming down the line.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of insight into the new Bosch Performance CX motor, but the question I'm asking you guys is, has Bosch done enough with the power, or are you distracted by the big numbers of the likes of DJI?